Grace, peace, and all good things to you from God who was and who is to come. Amen. So I'm going a little off the text a bit today because what happened to our thing? Did it go away? Okay, we'll try again. Chloe, help! Because the other Thursday was the day of the Ascension. Right? And there's this great little moment in the book of Acts where Jesus ascends, and then the disciples are looking up towards heaven, and then the angel comes alongside and says, "What are you looking for?" Just staring up into space. What are you trying to find? I think about that because I think we have to have an honest conversation about the ancient world and about the way we understand the world today. We have to talk about what does it mean for us to take these ancient world concepts and then to put them into this place. So what you see on the screen, thank you, Chloe. Give a big hand for Chloe, fixing the sermon yet again. What you see on the screen is a 3-story universe. This was the way, nobody would have questioned that this was the way the world was at the time of Jesus. There was a flat earth, there were pillars under the earth that held it in space, there was a primeval ocean underneath and water all around, there was an ocean above, and these little teeny holes you could see, they were the stars, they were actually ways in which the water came in from the dome and watered the earth. This is the commonly held view. Well, then, later on, you have a Ptolemaic worldview in which obviously the earth is in the center of the universe and everything revolves around the earth, right? Well, that was considered undisputed truth until later on, which you then have the heliocentric model of seeing how the world or our solar system is, where you see the sun at the center and all the planets that circle around it. Ready to get your mind blown? That works in this sort of like a disk understanding if you think about the sun as being stationary. But the sun, our star, is traveling at about 60,000 miles an hour around the galaxy. So that means that instead of having a flat spin, this is what your solar system looks like. This is the understanding. We are chasing this sun in this spinning, and this creates almost like a helix of the way. So here's the truth. You are on a planet that is spinning at just over 600 miles an hour, and it's going around a sun, probably, they say, around maybe like 8,000 to 9,000 miles an hour, and then you are following that sun 60,000 miles an hour around a galaxy. It is absolutely true to say, we have never been here before. We have never been in this space before. This is the beautiful planet on which we live that is doing that amazing speed, and it's so far from the understanding of the ancients. This is that same planet upside down. But does upside down make any sense in a universe that doesn't have up or down? I think that the question in the midst of all this is, where is God in this universe? And how do we access connections to God? How many times are we like the disciples looking towards the sky and saying, I'm waiting for God to come from up? When a home run is hit in baseball and they come around and they get to the last, touch the home plate, they always go, thanks, buddy, right? I mean, giving thanks to God. But why is God there? That goes back to this 3-story universe that is part of our ancient metaphoric understanding. We did this in church too. For a long time, the pastor or the priest would face that direction. That was true in this church for a long time. The altar was against the wall. Where is God in this scenario? God, everyone's facing this way. God's somewhere up there. And then after there was the liturgical renewal of Vatican II, we turned around and all these white guys turned and faced us, right? And where is God in the midst of this? Well, more in our community. This is St. Gregory of Nyssa Episcopal Church in San Francisco, and this is how they celebrate communion. The table is at the very center, and everyone performs a little dance step around in a circle. Where is God in the midst of that? It's in the midst of the community. And yet here when we talk about the ascension, we always see it as looking up, someplace above us. So, where is Waldo? Where is God in the midst of our lives? Well, Jesus said that Jesus would be found in a couple places. So if we're trying to take Jesus at his own words, where can we find Jesus? It says, well, first of all, you're going to find it in the people who are in the most need. When you find folks who are struggling in poverty, in prison, when people are dealing with addiction, abuse, when they've been alienated by others, when they've been told that they're of no value, see in the relationship with them, you will discover me. There's a story about a pastor who went to a church, and I don't know if it's a true story, but it's too good. I don't care if it's true. It's too important not if it's true or not. But this guy was called to this church, and most of this conversation had happened on the phone, so they hadn't seen him, and so it was an inner city church, and he decided what he was going to do is dress up as though he was living on the street, and he poured whiskey on himself, and he laid on the church steps while all the church members filed by and came in and sat in the church. And then after everyone was there and waiting for worship to start, their new pastor walked down the aisle, got to the front and said, "We've got some talking to do, because none of you invited me into church today. None of you saw that I could have been Christ for you." Christ is found in places of need, in immigrants that are stuck at the border trying to find amnesty, in bread lines where people are just trying to figure out how to have their daily bread, in the social worker's office trying to figure out how they're going to pay their medical bills, in prison where so many people are stuck into a cycle. In California, the recidivism rate is 73%. That means 73% of the people who do their time and come back out go right back in within 18 months or so. We have to find a way to have relationships with those people for their sake, true, but also for ours. If we want to know God and to have a relationship with Christ, we can only find Christ where Christ said that he would be found. And that's going to be with people in need. The second place was at the table. In Luke 24, when Jesus is walking with these people and they don't recognize him, and he's explaining the scriptures and they still don't recognize him, and then he walks as if he's going to continue on. This is the resurrected Jesus. I don't know where he'd be going, but he says as if he might be walking on, and then they invited him into their house. And it's at table when he breaks the bread, their eyes are opened and they see that it's Jesus. When we gather together and we break bread, here at this table to be sure, but also at our other tables, when we include people into our dining spaces that we don't know, that are different from us, maybe even that can't repay us with an invitation to their house, Christ will be present. The point of all of this, I think, is Jesus making the case that every single one of us has divinity inside, and that we find that divinity when we get into relationship with each other. Our eyes, instead of being cast up, may be cast in to see the beauty that exists in each person. And I would go even beyond each person. In this time in which we have such devastation on the earth, into each white rhino, or each species of dolphin, or each coral reef that continues to go, that God's wonderful creative beauty is present there. And when we fail to see that, then it becomes a commodity. So where's Waldo? This is the Waldo 5K race, where everyone dresses as Waldo. Maybe that's a better way for us to understand where to look for God. We find God in the eyes, in the faces of all the people around us. Don't look up. Look next to you. God is here. God is in that person. God is in you. Most specifically, in those places where you struggle. When we can be open and share what's going on in our lives. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm going through. And if you can hear that and hold that in compassion, Christ shows up. We are made of divine light. We are given the task of seeing that in other people. That is our work together. That is the mission of the church. To tell people, to sneak up next to anyone who doesn't believe it and say, you are a beautiful son of God. You are a daughter of the Most High. You're a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people set apart. The God of the universe is extraordinarily fond of you. Amen.